This is so wonderful. I've heard so many of your peers, and how did you do this one? That's your ritual before you go in the booth?
Microphones are fine. A lot of my because I play, I just kind of make sounds and make voices and mock people and imitate what I hear and just kind of keep it always going, always having fun.
Well, it certainly seems like it. What I'd love to do is go in a little bit, kind of in the origin story, as I call it.
Okay. All right. More time.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, since we're in the vicinity of it, one of your earliest gigs I was curious about, because I still know some people who sort of the anatomical players at Epcot.
Yes. Yeah, right. I spent 4.5 years having fun with other actor-performer friends at Epcot Center and also Universal Studios. There's a Wonders of Life Pavilion at Epcot, and also did the World Showcase Players. I was a walk around Beetlejuice at Universal Studios, and did a lot of improv with SAC Theater in town with Wayne Brady and others. Learned a lot about improv back then.
Dave Russell here. Keep it crisp.
Dave Russell, yep, brilliant improviser, great guy. And did a lot of theater there too, musicals with the Civic Theater, which sadly no longer exists there. And that was a very formative, and I learned a lot at those 4.5 years. Culminating with doing Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yes.
For Nickelodeon, and that kind of launched me to into Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was. Dave was my director when I opened the Monsters Inc. show.
Yeah. Okay.
And
right.
so, and that was the tail end of the World Showcase Players. So
yeah,
your name would occasionally come on up with as one of the ones who escaped.
Yeah. Well, and many of them did, and it was a nice little cauldron of really good creative minds who were good actors, brilliant at improv, and the improv really caught my eye because I really liked that, and much of what I do right now is fundamentally very improvisational. Voice acting is exactly that. It's acting, but it's also a lot of improv as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Legend of the Hidden Temple. That was very curious because it started out as an attraction, and then it went to TV, but they kept you, which sometimes doesn't happen.
Explain that timeline to me, because I just know of them making the game show, and that's all I know of it.
I believe it was just an attraction, and then they made it into. Or was it always TV up front?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was told. I was told otherwise. All right.
No, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, fair. No, absolutely fair. Boy, but it matters. It had its fans, and that early one kind of gets you out there. I wanted to ask this real quick, and I'm probably a few people will probably never mention this. Did an episode of a show I adored that came and went real quick. G versus Z.
Wow, that's a deep dive.
It is.
Right. That was early in my time in Los Angeles in the early 90s when I was also trying on camera as well. I went there, I jumped out of Orlando to go to Los Angeles. I thought I wanted to do animation voice acting, but I was open to doing anything. I mean, anything legal as a performer. And so I was doing on-camera commercials and was like student films and starting to get work in on-camera television. I was a recurring role in a series called The Journey of Alan Strange on Nickelodeon, where I got to play a UFO nut and had a lot of fun with that. But animation, I got traction there, and I soon saw that I had to make a choice, because the on-camera people, they want you in a trailer and they want to know where you're at for often a week or two at a time. And they don't want you running out to audition for animation, and they don't want you to do your silly little cartoon. They just want you there. And so I had to make a choice, and the choice was easy because animation's a lot more fun, it's a lot more variety, and it just suited me better. I didn't want to sit in a trailer all day. Didn't really want to be famous, the on-camera thing was kind of a different mountain to climb. And with the skills that I had as a performer, an actor, and an improviser, the voiceover realm suited me much better, I thought. So that's what I went with.
Right on. Again, you've had such a prolific career. Again, so many fandom properties. One of the few people that's done Star Wars and Star Trek. To do so, but you've done a really fantastic body of work in the, for lack of a better term, the kid stuff. And that's not an admonishment towards the stuff with the younger viewers, stuff like that. What's it like doing that? Because with the fandom based stuff, it's a little more mature on the end, but on the other younger stuff, it always seems to have its own, like, well, you gotta do this and you can't do this.
Yeah, well, I mean, since I got started, I mean, in the old days, animation was pretty much all kids stuff, and now there's all kinds of flavors and genres and tones of animation, and that really was taking off. I guess for my money, in the early '90s with Ren and Stimpy, which was they put that on Nickelodeon. The first kids network, an animated series is like, is this for kids? I mean, if I were a kid, I would definitely want to watch it because there's some pretty cool, weird stuff going on here. But as a grown-up, it's like, wow, those references that they're making are just pretty over the top. But for me, I mean, it all feels the same, and that's part of what I like about voice acting is I can work stuff that's for young or for old or for animation or games or movies or on camera. And it all just feels like acting to me. It all feels like performance. It's all utilizing the same muscles, just with a different variation. And it's all fun to me. I like it all.
What's the craziest moment you've had in the booth?
The craziest moment in a booth? Well, let's see. I mean, my time in the booth is pretty crazy most of the time.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. But for me, I think I probably, at the top of it, I'd have to put doing the Bad Batch, where I'm just doing a whole scene talking to myself. And that's
Several of those.
You know, a lot of voiceover gigs, they have us do maybe 2 or 3 voices. But it's not just the whole show of you talking to yourself. And it's kind of straight ahead dramatic stuff too. It's not cartoony, so to speak. And so it was uniquely challenging. And it started, of course, with doing the Domino Squad in Clone Wars, where there we all back there. Shout out to the clones. Where it wasn't clear that it was going to work, that it would read and it would seem like these guys are all different, even though they're sort of the same genetic makeup. And so that was scary, and it was also more straight ahead stuff, because I was used to doing the wackier, more cartoony, comedic stuff. That's how I thought of myself. And but I was given that opportunity to take those clones into space, and it was a learning experience and a challenge that was a bit harrowing, but that I felt that I was able to deliver it. And nothing's more gratifying in my career than the payoff of taking that all the way through Rebels into the Bad Batch finally. And very, very proud of that.
In Bad Batch, is it linear? Are you just doing this reading and then the other clones reading, or is it, I'll do number 3s all at once?
Now we go straight through the screen.
Yeah, so that each one talks to the others. We're just there in the same room, and they're just all different people. So it's all just goes straight through the scene.
Straight through. All right. Ooh, tricky.
But it is tricky, but it's like an old television set where you switch the dial from one channel to the other. And if you're clear on what's broadcasting on that channel, then the magic trick of jumping back and forth into different characters, it actually gets easier because of the definition that you have between the characters. It's the clarity that you have in your mind of the 3-dimensional character that makes it a reference point that you can easily snap into. And you don't have to reset the stage and reset your mind and to snap that or to lock that into place. It's just like jumping from stone to stone in a river.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for indulging my capricious curiosity. On behalf of myself and this audience, before I go out and answer your questions, I just want to thank you for your talents, your professionalism, and all these amazing performances that you've done. It's been an absolute delight. You've given so many smiles and so much entertainment. Thank you, bro. Really.
It's my pleasure. It's really fun to come here and to say hello to you all and to get the affirmation of the shows that we make. You know, I started doing acting when I was a kid, just for fun. I really was only doing it for fun for a couple of decades, like 2 decades. I didn't really think of it as a career or as something that I was going to do, but I just liked doing it. And part of what you like in doing it, whether it's doing a musical or doing stand-up or improv or children's theater or singing telegrams or whatever, is that you have an audience to connect with. And as a voice actor, you don't really have that. Other than the voice director and maybe the producer or the head writer on the other side of the glass, you don't have an audience anymore. And in many cases, you don't even have the ensemble that you're working with. The only show we're doing right now are SpongeBob shows where they actually have the ensemble there working together. Otherwise, they often just record everyone remotely and separately. So we as a company are not together. But that's one of the reasons I got into this. I like being an actor, is to have an audience in addition to having a cast. So here at a convention, I've got you guys, the audience, so I can say hi to my audience and get some reminder of me being an actor and the impact of what I'm making. And I also get to say hello to my voice actor friends in 3 Dimension, which I don't get to do anymore for the most part since COVID, unless I'm at a convention. So it's a very positive and a beautiful experience for me to be here to say hi to you guys.
Us too.
Pleasure is ours. Oh, I also want to thank you real quick for helping provide my favorite scene of all time in Young Justice as Green Lantern. Hey, how about we bring in Guy Gardner?
No.
But
No.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
that's all right. It's all good. It's all good. Well, I had like 1,200 plus credits.
Yeah, there's so much that I've done that I just, some of it I watched. I mean, when my kids were younger, there were some shows, you know, like Handy Manny and Kids Next Door and things like that, where they liked it and they wanted to watch it, and so I get to watch what I'm doing. But for the past, I don't know, decade or so at least, I just don't have the time. I'm more of a dealer than a user. I don't get a chance to watch very much these days. I watched all the Clone Wars stuff because I love Clone Wars and Bad Batch so much, and then I will but I'll also unwind these days watching American Dad. That amuses me.
Absolutely. All right. Who thinks they have a question? Just raise your hands, and I tell you, let's do a line. Tell you, we'll do it in this hallway.
Ask me a question.
All right.
Ask me a question I've already been asked.
Let's do a line. Come right here. Whoever's first, we'll get 2 pieces of candy. So whoever's coming over here. All right. Looks like it's gonna be this fella. All right. Hey, what's your name?
Christian,
Hey, Christian.
do you miss Star Wars weekends?
Yeah, I do miss Star Wars weekends. We had a lot of fun doing those, and it was it's always beautiful fun to go back to the parks, and you get to be in a parade, which is a lot of fun. So yes, I do miss that very much. Those were a lot of fun.
I agree.
Oh, did you give him like a piece of candy? What does he get?
Whoever asks a question and stays within the rules gets a piece of candy.
Oh, okay.
Hello, what's your name?
Ashla Stargazer.
Hello.
I'm
Yeah.
from Candy. I do have a question.
Yes.
So you've voiced over 20-something characters just in the Clone Wars, right?
I would say so.
Yeah. Who's your favorite?
Of all the characters that I've done in the Clone Wars, can I include the clones or not?
Yeah, you can define it however you want.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's see. My favorite clone, I'm not sure that I can choose just one, but Fives broke my heart. And that's a hard one to forget. And I really love 99. There's so many of them. But aside from them, from the clones, let's see now. I really like being Queen Karina, the Genosian Queen. I thought that was a really cool episode, kind of a horror episode, and an interesting one-off character, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed performing That's just fun for you.
Thank you. And a reminder, everybody, too.
These are good questions.
Dee will be joining us tomorrow for the big Clone Wars panel as well, along with
Yes.
all that stuff too.
Clone Wars panel.
Hey, what's your name?
So actually took my question. So I'm going to ask, is there a voice that you had in mind for any of the clones that just didn't work out or that you wanted to do, but just it never popped up?
I'm the kind of soldier that I just take my orders and do what I do. So, but I would say that I really liked Gregor. And I was sad at his apparent demise in the Clone Wars, and I was thrilled, but a little terrified with his reappearance in Rebels when Filoni came to me and said, "Hey, Gregor's coming back, but we want him to be a little different." And I'm like, "Well, how different?" and so we tried something with Gregor that it's like. He was a little PTSD, and there's a little something off about the guy, but you still liked him a lot, and he was still a competent warrior and everything. And so that was scary for me to resurrect Gregor in this new form, because I didn't know if the fans would like it. I also didn't know if it would read as too broad or too wacky. But I was very gratified with it. I liked it. I thought it worked well.
Fun one, thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Kayla.
Hey.
I wrote it down so I don't butcher it. But before season 2, before Tech's sacrifice, you had said that Tech didn't get enough love. So I was wondering, as of now, who do you think is an underrated clone that you would like to see get more attention and love?
Well, man, they all get so much appreciation. Let's see. I mean, I think the more heroic they are, the more they tend to get praise and appreciation. And Tech gets an awful lot of appreciation, I must say.
Tech's not dead.
His heroism shall live on, in any case. And Crosshair, I was also very gratified that Crosshair got a lot of attention. I think he's my favorite of the Bad Batch in terms of where his story arc goes. Tech I relate to the most, I must say. Yeah, I mean, who deserves of the clones more attention? I'd love to do more about 99. It's like, let's go back and do a whole arc about younger 99 and what his existence was like and what his life was like. I also want to do actually, and I'm not a writer and I don't really have a say. I don't like whisper in Dave Filoni's ear, story ideas or anything. But I would love to see a 10-minute episode that follows Tex running through all of the scenarios of how he can save the mission and how he can save his fellow clones in the moments before that we lose him. I'd like to see how he runs that through his mind. To run it this way, and then say, nope, we're going to run it this way, and then what if I try it this way? And okay, I'm going to go this way. And the next step, I'm going to go, should I do this or should I do that? And just to see how his brilliant mind processes things, because he processes things differently. He has his own unique brilliance, and that would be interesting.
Oh, thank you, great one. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Abby. I totally agree with you with the Tech episode. This isn't Clone Wars related, but how did you get into creature noises? You obviously do a lot of them.
Yeah, thanks to a lot of improv experience, and then plus I always liked monster movies, and I watched a lot of nature documentaries when I was a kid. I liked animals and science. And when I made it out to Los Angeles, I saw that there was a need for doing monsters as well as animals, like pets, family pets. There's always like some familiar or some kind of halfway sentient animal that the family has, and I saw there was a need for that, and so I started kind of working on my animal sounds, but not as sounds per se, but as it's more like a lens through which to project acting. So it has to, if it's a sound, or it's like dog sounds, they have to be dog sounds where you can express almost like you have a conversation. There's specific intent underneath it, which is acting, right? So, you know, what does a dog is not just barking, but it's also, you know, it's sadness, it's curiosity, sniffing, it's you know, snarling or menacing. There's a whole range that you need to have in your tool belt to make the animal or creature or monster useful in storytelling. And so I just started doing that. I started working on that as I drove around in my car, far away from my family, because it'd be annoying. And I collect. It's like collecting instruments in an orchestra that I would have sitting around, and I would be able to play them to the purpose of helping someone tell their story. So that's kind of how I did it. If you're interested, I have a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com where I share for free everything that I've learned about becoming a voice actor and a creative entrepreneur and everything else. But I did write a blog post called What About Creature Sounds, I think it's called. And I go into more detail about, you know, how to explore that, what you're trying to do, and what the project is. Because it's not just making sounds; it's a variation of acting. It's very specific.
Great question. Thank you. Hey, what's your name?
Harrison.
Hey, Harrison.
So, Capcom is working with Kamiya on a sequel to Okami.
A sequel to what?
Okami?
Okami. I don't know what that is.
Well, it's an old series by Studio Clover, and with its return, I was curious. Have you heard anything about a possible Beautiful Joe 3?
Well, Beautiful Joe, they used me for the first game, and then they went non-union and hired somebody else. So I've really not heard from them since having worked on the first game, which I had a lot of fun on, and which I thought was a really great game. So they've never contacted me again. They went non-union.
Oh,
There you go.
but
Sadly for
Stay
them
tuned.
and for the fans.
maybe they'll go back to union. We'll see. Time will tell. But good question, though. Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Elizabeth, and I was wondering what your favorite Bad Batch quote was.
Well, well, I'll have two, and they're both 10. One is, when have we ever followed orders? And the other is, when I thought it was obvious. I thought that was very
Do
funny.
you have a favorite?
Pretty much anything Crosshair says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such as how orders.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
How? What? Yeah, he actually has a few moments where it's like, oh, he's got a sense of humor. What's the one where it's touching? I like that. He's such a cool character. Really, I really had fun doing that voice, and such an enjoyable story.
Hey, what's your name?
John.
Hey, John.
So, were there any of the Bad Batch specifically, but I guess any clone characters where you struggled to find their voice? Or somebody was like, hey, we need a clone Rambo, and you're like, I got that.
I don't remember ever having trouble with that. It's early on, it was more of a challenge just to keep them all, like in the Domino Squad days. It was initially more of a challenge to keep those guys distinct. But then it just became more and more natural. And then whenever we come up with a new clone, the writing was great enough and specific enough that the adjustment was obvious, and we found that very quickly. I can't think of struggling later on. It got real natural.
There you go. Fun one. Thank you. Hey, what's your name?
I'm Zach. I was wondering, what did you do to prepare and like what kind of research did you do when you first got casted as the clones for the movie?
Well, really, all I did was I watched the prequels again, and just I tried to have in my ear, what Tim Morrison was doing, which wasn't a lot, and but just to try to have that as a reference point, just to be ready. But that was it. I mean, there was it ultimately what George Lucas and Dave were doing was kind of a new trajectory for that part of that universe. And so what we were trying to do wasn't so much a replication, but a relaunch of a new ship in a new direction that in some ways certainly had a lot of the DNA of where it came from, but in other ways it took it in a very different direction. In particular, I mean, for instance, Anakin Skywalker, which they started recording that with essentially going for the same voice and the same character as in the prequels. And it didn't work with the way the script and the whole story tone was going, which was much more compact and more energized and more heroic, and it didn't work. And so there was a lot of tweaking and that went on, but also I think George and Dave kind of allowed it to become pretty quickly its own thing, its own reference point. That's how it felt to me anyway.
Good question, thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Madison. So with all the characters you played, has there ever been a moment that stands out in your memory that you get done recording a scene or just recording a session that, whether it's really emotional or you just really connected with the character the first time, that you have to sit with it and kind of go, oh wow, step back, any specific things like that stick out to you?
Well, I mean, doing the Umbara arc in the Clone Wars, that was really hard for me. That's actually the only thing I can think of that I've ever done where it just left me really sad and stricken, and that was difficult. But I'll jump to another universe. There's an episode, the finale episode of Book 1 of The Legend of Korra, where I'm voicing the character Tarlok. And it was me and Steve Bloom as these two powerful but doomed brothers who end up in a heartbreaking, heroic murder-suicide together. That was something that I remember looking over at Steve and just thinking, are they actually going to animate this? Can they really do that? I think there's animation now that goes much further in terms of, it's much further away from what you call kids' cartoons, I guess. But that particular episode and that particular scene I thought was very, very moving and very, very affecting for me. Yeah.
Great question, thank you.
Now, these don't have to be all Clone Wars questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want, that's fine.
Hey, what's your name?
Will,
Hey, well.
so I know you're saying not to do more Clone Wars, but there's other Clone Wars.
I'm saying you don't have to do it, it's all good.
I'm open to anything.
So what is your all-time favorite Clone Wars, I guess, story? Because I know that there's separate arcs and then there's some like actual filler in there. And also, what would be like your favorite clone quote from the entire series?
Now that's a multi-part question. You answered however you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's hard to choose, but I really like the 5's arc, just because it's really affecting and tragic, and I think it's beautifully done, and so it's going to be that. I really like Captain Rex saying, "It's Captain, sir." That him standing up for himself like that. I think that's pretty wonderful. But how do you choose? I don't know how you choose.
I gave you one anyway, but you get a red one. Hey, what's your name?
Jackson, what's your opinion on the Bad Batch in the story?
What's my opinion on the Bad Batch? What my opinion about what about the Bad Batch?
Like the entire story in general.
The entire story in general.
We don't have all day.
I think. Well, I love it. I'm going to say that it's for my money, it might be the best opening scene of any Star Wars anything, and it's also, for my money, the best final scene of any Star Wars anything.
Wow. Bookends.
Now I'm prejudiced, but what a brilliant opening moment that they chose for that. I just love it, where it just all, it's a great Star Wars moment, but it's also a great Clone Wars moment. And the finish is just very sweet and near and dear to me.
What's your opinion?
I think it's amazing. Ever since I started watching it, I thought it was the greatest Star Wars show I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. I wish they'd make more.
Nice.
You can go backwards in Star Wars time and tell stories that happened long. We can go like Count Dooku when he was a little kid. You know, you can go back. So I'd love that. I would love that. I'd love them to do a feature animated Bad Batch film. Let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what's your name?
Austin. I have two questions.
You get one question, then you go to the end of the line.
Which character, if you could voice any character from any new show, like Demon Slayer, or like you said, Legends of Korra, like that, who would you want to voice?
You know, I don't think I've ever thought that way. I think I'm a post-aspirational voice actor. I only aspire to be ready, but I don't target specific roles. I just aspire to be ready to conjure whatever they need for anything. And so I'm always trying to fill my life and my experience and to follow my curiosity and to read and to fill myself to this sort of overflowing readiness to go wherever I need to in order to serve the story that they bring to me. And to me, that's part of why I work so much, is that I focus more on readiness and not so much on achieving or attaining or anything, any other kind of metric. I just like the process of making and collaborating and doing, and that my focus is the readiness to be at the plate, to hit the ball when it comes over the plate, whatever kind of ball it is. That's a weird, long-winded
All right, we
answer.
got a few minutes left, so you get the second one, you'll be the last one. So let me get to these folks here. Hey, what's your name?
Austin. I know you have a lot of characters, but if you could hang out with one for a day, who would it be?
If I could hang out with one, if I could hang out with one character, it would be Daffy Duck.
Wow.
Lots of fun. Yeah. I'll say Daffy.
Thank you. Hey, what's your name?
Nathan.
David.
I was wondering, I see trouble with the people back there, but what's your favorite clone battalion?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, but I can't choose that. I don't know how to choose that.
What's yours?
501st.
Always the same answer. Hi, what's your name?
Lindsay, I have a question about Ben 10. Is there a process for the aliens that you enjoyed, or like a specific alien?
They would, with the Ben 10 iterations that I was involved with, Alien Force, and I can't remember, there was two of them anyway. But they would just basically, they would show me the drawing, and, you know, there's usually like an adjective or two about the character that leaps out at you. I would try something, and pretty quickly they would say, yeah, let's do that, and then we'd do it. So, you know, like, Humongosaur it's big, humongous. It's just, it's a throat ripper. I hate doing it, but it's got to go big because that's the character of the story. Or like, it's an alien, so it's not going to sound human, so it needs to be a weird. So it's an improvisational readiness that enables you to snap into a good idea that's appropriate, that fits. That's where improv training really came in handy for me, is to quickly be able to come up with a useful idea that others find compelling to help them tell their story. So that's kind of how that works. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now the other one. Okay. What's this?
Whenever the Pong Krell situation happens in the Clone Wars, how do you think Anakin and Obi-Wan would have handled it or felt had they been on the planet whenever Pong Krell did what he did to the clones?
How would they have felt?
Like, do you think it would have made Anakin go dark side much faster?
Yeah, I mean, how do you not go after that? I mean, it's just evil. It's horrible. It was a horrible experience going through that. And I think it's a beautiful arc, but it's just so heartbreaking and tragic. I don't see how they answer that with anything but outrage and action. Yeah, you know it. He cares about the clones as much as anybody.
Anything coming up on the docket that you're allowed to share with us?
Nope. Working on a lot of stuff.
That's why I say allowed.
Yeah, it's what am I allowed? I don't know. You know, I'm in all kinds of shows. There's shows for kids, Super Kitties, Robo Gobo. There's there's American Dad. If there were Star Wars stuff, I couldn't tell you about it. The new Avatar. Yeah, if I were involved with that, I couldn't tell you about it. The new Phineas and Ferb, of course. That's coming out there. That's a wonderful show that I'm really. I love when a brilliant, great show they just say, let's just go make that again. I wish they would do that with Code Name Kids Next Door. I wish they would. Maybe someday the corporate idiots who own it and are sitting on it will say, let's make it, because everybody I think would love it. It was a brilliant show. Yeah, so lots of things. I'm out there. I'm out. You'll hear me. You may not know me. In fact, I don't want you to know me. I don't want you to know that I'm there.
That's the magic.
Yeah, maybe. If the check clears, that's all that matters.
And one final question. Would you like to take a picture with this amazing audience?
Okay.
All right, what we're going to do, we're going to take our stage selfie. You better come towards the stage.